Hi, this is Lisa from Question the Narrative. How is everybody today on this Monday, the 22nd of June? And I'm back with Honey Golden. Honey, how are you today?
Good. Yeah, a little more peppy than yesterday.
Yesterday was, I think everybody had this. I mean, actually, you're getting right into sort of the core thing, but you were doing some traveling last week. We didn't connect, but in general, everybody is sort of dealing with this. But right now, let's do an energy check-in, honey. People are talking about how the great split is here and it comes from all the different directions. And energetically, we're just starting to see things bubble up and so much disclosure. So let's give us an energy check. What's going on right now?
Well, a few weeks ago, we actually came over a wall. So we made it out of fourth dimensional feelings and moved into the fifth dimension. Now, we've been absorbing it. So think about like you're a carrot or you're a potato in a stew or a soup. And you're starting to absorb the liquid, which is the fifth dimensional energy. But in order to absorb, you must get rid of the third dimension and the fourth
Mm-hmm.
dimension.
Yeah.
So we're getting rid of a lot of angst, a lot of anger, a lot of crazy behavior. We're seeing a lot of the beings that don't really want to go forward into the fifth dimension. It's too much for them. Start to split off. A lot of people are passing away. We're realizing more and more that there are people that are holographic, and we're also a little more willing at this point to let people go because we know that they are, they're unlimited. They do not really die. It's a transition out of this construct that we're in. So it's a pretty intense time, and we're seeing a lot of negativity in the world. And we're also sometimes seeing a lot of negativity like slap into our own lives and then retract very fast. So,
Mm.
yeah,
Mhm.
there's a lot of like incidents that are happening, and we recover very quickly, but we realize it's like we just got touched by 3D or 4D.
Wow, that's so interesting. So you said a lot there. So there's a lot, like you said, negativity, but is that more polarity or truly negativity that we're seeing?
It's like the clearing of all the scam stuff. We're seeing all the clearing of all the negativity that we've had in the past. And a lot of people are acting like it's real, but it's actually just the reveal of it. So a lot of things are being revealed right now. And
Hmm.
think about the soup, right? And let's say that there was something in there that just floats up to the top.
Hmm.
So we need to skim that layer off. Okay. We
Yeah.
don't need
Yeah.
it. And it's the nasty stuff.
When you're making that chicken soup, it's that stuff on the top that we don't really want to do.
Yeah,
Although
it's
maybe
that.
that's some of the good stuff in life too, at the same time. But it's really interesting. Everybody's talking about the great split, and you once again articulated it. But now we're getting into a point where people are more comfortable understanding that it's the split and knowing that we are everlasting energetic beings and we are multidimensional. Those are the ones who will be going forward in that particular way. But I just have to say one thing. People are saying now too that it's by 2030 you make this decision and you'll be aware of the decision. So you've made the decision, but you'll be aware of the decision and the consequences, which is all the stuff that we're going through by 2030. I just want to say that when I was really young, I don't know what it was, but I had in my mind and I said, "Oh, 2030, that's the end. That's the end." And I must have been seven, eight, and nine. And then again in my 20s, I'll be like 2030. That's just the end. I had no idea why. I thought at this age I'd be just super old and maybe that's what it was. But now I'm getting that. Is that still the case? 2030. And what was I feeling at that point? It must have been a very strange thing because I remember those thoughts so vividly right now.
So basically 2030 is the end. So it's the end of fourth dimensional behavior, third dimensional behavior. It's the space where we're going to come into pretty much everyone that's decided to stay will
Mm,
know who they are, like will know that they made a decision. But if you think about like the multiverse, the
mhm,
split is a split of many, many layers. So there could be thousands of layers on this side of the split and thousands of layers on this side of the split that's tearing away, and everybody's
mhm,
going home in this side of the split. So, how long is it going to take all of those layers to get into the ascension process and be aware of it? Probably
mhm,
till 2030. So, some of us we're making the decision now. Right now, 2026 is the deciding big year, and 2027 will also be a deciding year, but much smaller window. But the ones that have decided aren't necessarily aware. It's all about their energy. So if their energy is high enough, they're going to be here anyway, but they won't really understand why they're here, I don't think.
right.
And they'll
And that's
still
what's
do some of
interesting.
that stuff, some of the icky stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. And that's exactly the kind of the feeling that everybody is going through right now. It's like all of this stuff is like there's that split. We hear the words, we experience the thought of that, but to experience it and to know the consequence of the decision, how important that decision is as to where you're going. And then the timelines that we're overlapping right now that won't be overlapping anymore is a very interesting process. We're together and we're separating at the same time. Fascinating time. And I think what's happening in the world is a consequence of that decision. And this is very interesting because we've got a lot of change. And in fact,
Yeah.
honey, we have a lot of change that just happened in the past day, 36 hours, 24 hours, 8 hours. Let's go through some of that stuff right
Yeah.
now. Let's talk about that. One of them is that Keir Starmer, the head of Prime Minister of the UK, out. What
Yeah.
is that? How important
Um,
is this? What is
it
this
feels
reflection?
important. It feels important. They're going to bring someone in that actually gets some things done for the
Mm-hmm.
people. Um, and it may look really gross. So it comes in for a little while because
Mm-hmm.
in Europe, there's been so many constraints. They have to break free. It's a bigger jailbreak than what happened in the US.
Have we broken out of jail in the US already?
I think in most of the minds of the people, there's a lot of yes, like a lot of people have. And I would say it's a much higher percentage than in
Hmm.
Europe. Um,
That's beautiful. Yeah.
yeah,
That just feels right. It really does feel right because there's a lot of ickiness on here. It's a lot of control, and people don't really understand how controlled they are, kind of thing. So that's interesting. So the Keir Starmer, was that prompted by the gang rape, the rape gangs that report that was funded by citizens versus the government?
yep. Um, and it feels like this event that the rape thing, also the thing that happened in, I think it was Scotland or maybe Northern Ireland with the scalping. Those things are really driving the people to say no. They're really, really angry about it and they're done. They're done
Mm,
being nice to everybody. They're more sovereign. They're becoming more sovereign and they actually want to take care of their own families and themselves first. So that's very necessary because if you just give your power away, which is what all this stuff has been about, if you give it away, then you lose.
Yeah. Yeah. So super, super, super interesting because we're getting all of this stuff coming out all over the place. And these are just a reflection. So that's good. But what was also happening up in Ireland, Northern Ireland, was not just sort of negativity. It was actually the first time the Protestants and the Catholics united and said, we're together. So it was like coming together. Now, how important is that for humanity to see of warring factions of religious dichotomy come together? I thought that's really powerful.
It's huge. It's so important. So, yeah, and we need to get rid of all the division that's been going on. And that will eventually include borders, but not right
Mhm.
now.
Yeah, that's kind
Yeah.
of a good thing on that. But there's so much, as you said, it's all coming up right now, and we're all feeling it in different ways. I'll share some more stuff on that later. But let's go through some of the stuff that continues to go through the day. Today, Alan Greenspan, who was one of the most prolific chairman of the Federal Reserve of the United States of America, died at age 100. What does this represent? Is that a communication point or was that just a naturally occurring death at 100?
It feels like a calm. So it feels like the Fed is dead calm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Mm.
because I get he's been dead for a while, actually.
Hmm. But he came from, he's gone through numerous administrations. He really led the charge in the US with the Federal Reserve about making the Federal Reserve knowing what they were going to say and signaling what it was going to say about how the markets moved. So that was really important, wasn't it? So you're thinking that this is another communication point.
Yeah. And I get, it's not just for the Federal Reserve, it's for all of whatever he was dabbling in or communicating about, it's changing right now. So they're letting him go because they're saying it's done.
Very, very, very interesting. Well, that just happened today. Then we
Nice.
have Tulsi Gabbard, who has been on international policy. She resigned, but her last days were last week. Now, the reason that was supposedly for the resignation is that her husband is not well and he's going in for some therapy. I think he has cancer. But she's declassifying a number of things as she leaves. Now, it's interesting. First of all, can someone who's leaving declassify things like that? Is that, or is that why she left? Can you give us a little bit of background about
I
what
think
is
she's
Tulsi?
getting, yeah, sorry. Like, I'm
No, no,
answering
no.
before you're done. I
Yeah.
think she's getting out because she's she needs to dump this all out. And she's, an actor in this movie. So they want her dumping it all out before she goes because she's still employed.
Hmm.
Until what, today? Maybe she's not employed today anymore.
No, yeah, she stopped not today anymore. So I think Friday was her last day. But
Okay.
she was doing it all last week. Yep, all of this stuff
Yeah.
was going on last week. Hmm.
So some of those videos were AI that I could tell.
Hmm.
But it's important because she needed to dump all that out and then to exit. So I feel like they're going into some sort of protection for a while
Hmm.
because it is chaotic right now. So she was able to get it all out and get it on the news so that nobody can say, oh, well, that's not true. And now it has to unfold.
Yeah. So she was disclosing the UFO files.
Mm.
And she's disclosing so many of the other things that our governments were hiding. And so that's really important. So what is the role that she played? First of all, I agree with you. It looked like AI. Most of those videos that she had looked like AI. But was that her original role? And is the role that Tulsi Gabbard plays for the white hats, the good, the positive side for humanity, or was it for the dark side and then we're moving her out?
I feel like she was more on the negative side at first, whether she knew it or not, you know. Um, I feel like she was controlled a little bit more, and this is years ago, but she was a democratic person. It feels like she was on the edge of going one way or the other.
Hmm.
And the white hats got to her first as far as like pulling her in one direction or another. And I think a lot of people that get political, it becomes a very dicey experience for them, especially in the past.
Yeah, they
So,
try and then they are told this is how it works if you want to
yeah.
continue.
And then they realize that they're basically in a machine and they have to comply. So
Hmm.
she was on the edge of that, it feels like, and then was pulled over into the good. Um, so, they're carrying out a lot of what she would have probably done. I feel like she might have been in witness protection for a little while, even maybe
Hmm.
when they first announced it, so
Mm,
that she was going to go.
wow. So
Yeah.
was she, so, but her role was to disclose this information.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it feels like there might have been somebody else in that role to begin with, but it didn't really work. And the White Hats have been pivoting a lot. Like they've had to pivot. They've, like Pam Bondi doesn't feel totally awesome, in some ways. But they still utilize that brand to disclose a
Hmm.
lot of things, but she didn't do it all the way. So they're also outing, some of what she's doing. And it's going to be like this crazy book of wild twists and turns. It's going to read like a spy novel by the time it's all over. But that's basically how they've had to navigate it.
Yeah, and it makes sense because, in all honesty, if you look at it and you say, well, you looked at that screenplay and say, would I have greenlit that screenplay and wanted to do that? And you'd be like, no. But at the end of the day, this is how our belief systems are shifting. And it really is quite amazing how they're able to do that. So
Mhm.
fascinating, fascinating the psychology of all that. And speaking of which, a lot of the psychology of MK Ultra was also being brought out by her. And that is really critical. And they were talking now, all this information is coming out, it's flooding out. So, some of the information that came out, another one that's come out a number of times right now, is how the Rothschilds were controlling global weather. And that they said that for 22, there were 22, a network of 22 climate controlling stations that created all of our weather patterns. You didn't agree to this? We're to do that. They started off with Vietnam. They created all of this discursion. Haiti, and once again, the earthquake there, then we had another hurricane there, and all of these things. And remember, we talked about hurricanes. There was a pattern of hurricanes that in the Gulf, it was always on September 3rd, 4th, or 5th that the hurricane would be the worst and the highest degree category in all the season in the Gulf that time. So they're controlling all of this. First of all, do we now have control over the weather making apparatus now?
We have for a while, most of it. Feels like maybe two or three were hard to get a hold of,
Mm-hmm.
but now they've got them all. Yeah. Thanks to the ETs is what I'm getting. So the ones
Oh,
that were a holdout were the ETs had to go in and get them.
okay. So once again, in retrospective, It was all done, but now we're getting disclosure. How important is this for people to understand the weather manipulation?
It's so important because we actually live in a terrarium. So we shouldn't have hardly any weather.
You mean no blizzards? No hurricanes?
No, no
Really?
hurricanes.
Are you sure?
Yeah, a more
Wow, that'd be
constant
beautiful.
temperature. And I think that's too why they've been really manipulating it in crazy ways too. Like lots of flooding. Um, Someone I know just got flooded and it just sat there. It just
Mm-hmm,
sat
mm-hmm.
there. And it was over a major city, and that city needed cleaned energetically. So it did get cleaned, but a lot of people's basements flooded out.
Yeah, because it's just so much. We've had that in Europe, across Southern Europe. And what's fascinating is now Southern Europe has more moderate temperatures than Northern Europe. So the northern part of Italy, the southern part of France, all of that experienced heat waves, whereas Southern Italy had not. Yet we are getting fires 2 months earlier than they get anything. And it's fire after fire after fire. What's going on with the fires in southern Italy and what's going on
Also
there?
feels like a cleanse.
Hmm.
So southern Italy is where a lot of things started. So I'm getting that were more negative, and they would start and then matriculate up. So anything that came through the water that was more
Mm.
negative would start at the tip and go up into Italy.
Mm.
And then there was stuff that came down from like England and stuff. But I mean, there are things that have been going on in Europe for so long, like really crazy stuff, like the catacombs in France. The story that we hear about that is a complete lie.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
all of that stuff has to be cleared.
Yeah. So energetically as well as physically.
Yeah.
So here's a question to ask you. So if you look at the population of the world today, you have a large population in Asia that is Chinese background. Then you have a smaller group of Korean and Japanese, but Chinese is the predominant genetics that you have in Asia. Europe is a mixture, and we have all these small countries. And Italy right now is about 60 million in population. And that population is compared to like 400 million plus, or at least that's what they tell you. Yet, if you go over into the Americas, through North and South America, the majority of Brazil, a big majority in Argentina, a large percentage in the United States are of Italian genetics. Was that intentional? And what does that mean? It's
Well,
a
to
small
me,
country. We're not that big a country.
no, it's not that big of a country, but the genetics are strong and it's part of Rome. So if you think about Rome, that whole nation actually was not just in Italy. I think the history is totally off. And it was the predecessor of Tartaria. So Rome was what came before Tartaria, and it
Hmm.
was not necessarily completely worldwide, but close.
Wow. So those genetics, I mean, all over the Americas are Italian. And it's not, I mean, Spain had a big empire in South America, and there are Spanish genetics, but not like the percentage that you have of the Italian. And the same thing in America, you didn't have that. And it's fascinating how strong, how large a percentage the Italian genetics are.
Well, and I think when they made the incubator babies, that was also a huge genetic soup, and a lot of them were, Italian. But think about Italy, think about Rome. think about how hollowed out Italy is right now. Like there's all these little
Mhm.
ghost towns. I
Mhm.
mean, you can buy a house in Italy if it needs some rehab for a very low cost. And that's because there's not enough people to fill up all the homes. So a lot of those people left, and the population is now dropping too because of that. And when we think about population, they've conned everybody into living in the city. So we actually think, oh my gosh, there's so many people. It's because they're all clustered together.
Speaking of which, well, this is fascinating what you just said. You're right. There was the massive migration out of Italy, and they populated a large portion of the Americas, which they could. They weren't populating Asia at that point or Africa, but the most of the Western world, the genetics, the Italian genetics are quite strong. Out, outpacing the percentage of Europe that they are. But you also have, the population in general, which you have talked about for quite some time in saying that the percentage of NPCs was very hard. But you just sent me something recently that talked about auras and how they couldn't do it. So you want to go through that and talk a little bit more about where we are with this NPC and where is the human population now in terms of numbers?
Yeah, so the human population is fluctuating constantly because so many people are leaving. As far as the percentage of NPCs right now feels pretty high. Um, it's not as high as it used to be because a lot of them have left. So, it feels like more in the 70s at this point because we've actually lost a lot of people that had souls that could not go the distance in this, transition of the body. It was too much.
Mhm.
So it feels like it's more in the 70s. I'm getting like 73, 74. However, it
Mhm.
used to be higher. And a lot of people have been without real consciousness for a while, too. And they've just been here almost like a program running the body, like a computer with no driver,
Mhm.
like with nobody that runs the computer, but it's just still looping. So if you
Mhm.
have someone looping in your life, either they're about to figure it out and get a walk in and stay, or they may be leaving, depending.
Mhm.
So just being aware of that. But the glass, the Dicinian, I think it's called glass, that I sent you that video this morning,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
helps you see the aura.
yeah. So the
Yeah.
aura is telling you whether or not it's human and has a soul. Is that what the aura is
Yeah,
talking
whether
about?
there's a consciousness, because your body's in the consciousness. So think about the toroidal field. Your body
Mhm.
lives inside the soul egg, which is inside the toroidal field. And
Mhm.
so you have an aura that comes out, and that's part of your consciousness. So if you don't have that, then, what
Right.
are you? Kind of,
And they were
yeah.
saying it was more along the lines of like 85%, but it sounds like there's other things. But you just also said something very interesting, which is that you could either leave or you'd have a walk-in. How many are looking to walk in? And was that really part of the original plan to have more walk-ins come in right now to help us through this period?
I think it's very necessary because one consciousness might be really young and they're like, this is too much. Can't do it. I can't handle this transition. I'm not moving my body fast enough into the transition, whatever it may be. And then they get a walk in. And the walk in is a bigger soul. So if you think about, I just got this as a present. So if you think about the human part of us, we have a little inner child, and that inner child stays with the body generally. So this is Groot Jr. So The
Rude
inner
Junior, I
child
love that.
lives in the body. Yeah, isn't that fun?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um,
That is cute. It's purple and green.
so
I love it.
yeah, so they're getting a new teacher, right? So a new teacher comes in, and the last teacher was like, okay, I got you as far as I can handle. I'm gonna go. And then this little guy spins and spins and spins. So if you have an actual organic body, you have a human consciousness.
Yeah, yeah,
And it needs a teacher right now. This is something unprecedented that we're doing.
yeah.
So the teacher is the walk-in.
Got it. That's really interesting because I think that's really important. I don't know if you're familiar with Greg Braden's work, and he's talking
Mhm.
about the future human, and he's saying a lot of these same things, but he's saying too that that decision is the human that will be here is either the human that's decided the organic route, which is really upping the consciousness, and your body will be different or and it's more the things that we're talking about. It will bring in all of those skills, those things that we said are supposedly super skills that we had before, and then or you're going to be that merger with tech. And is that how you see it as well, or how are you seeing this sort of play out here for the human body itself as what we're having here?
I think the merger with tech was more of the 3D idea. So I don't really
Hmm.
see anybody merging with tech. Yes, they might get a bionic arm, you know, because maybe they were
Hmm.
unwilling to go have one regrown or, you know, some sort of bionic item, but they're not going
Hmm.
to be merged in their mind with tech unless that's a 3D part of the multiverse that's still playing itself out. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure
You don't
where,
see that. It's not
yeah,
part
I
of
don't
what
see
makes
that in
you.
our
Okay.
reality. But for like a lot of the big souls, what's happening is your oversoul, so you're part of the multiverse, and each one of these represents a lifetime in the multiverse. So you and I have, tens of 20s of whatever times of these, parts of ourselves in the body now. So we're
Hmm.
growing. Our
Mm.
consciousness is growing, but it's from the same source of consciousness. So it's not the same as a walk in. It's just like, oh, I just resolved that lifetime. And they knew
Mm.
how to play the piano, and I don't. And that lifetime's coming in. So if I actually have the inspiration to get on the piano, I'm going to learn it really quickly. So
Wow.
those
Wow.
kind of things are helping with the gifts.
Yeah. Okay. So it's really more about remembering and bringing in the skills that you've had before, which is really, really beautiful. And I think that is very much the case you're seeing as we're doing it. There are so many stories that help us try to understand that concept about how in different realities we would be different, slightly different with different things happening. Fringe was a really good storyline for that as well, which was excellent. I do recommend that. It's a great series of quantum exploration. But this is very interesting because you're right. There are moments where you can say, "I didn't know something," and then you do know something because we're bringing it in. But let's explore one other thought that Greg Braden talks about. The body that we're in is shifting, and that is something that we've talked about before. Where are we going to? What are the big changes that we will be seeing the end of this year and through that 2030?
So we've moved from carbon to crystalline. So
Mm-hmm.
anybody that had the possibility of staying, anybody that's had a big soul ever, like
Mm-hmm.
at this point. So if you've had a big soul in the last 5 years, then your body is shifted, right, to
Mm-hmm.
crystalline. However, um, if you don't continue with that big soul, then someone can still go. They can still decide to go. It doesn't mean that you've chosen to definitely stay through the whole thing.
Hmm.
But what we're doing is we're reprogramming the human blueprint back to the original. So we also have DNA that's shifting. We have upgrades that are happening that are allowing us to see more and know more. And
Hmm.
our bodies are purging faster and they're also getting well quicker. So there's a lot going on with the crystalline body.
Hmm.
And I shared something the other day and they said, oh, well, the body's made of liquid crystal. It's made of water, but it's not the water that we drink, which is very true because the structure of water changes when it's in the cell and in the body. And then they also discovered that mitochondria communicate with light. So all
Or
the things that we've
frequency.
been saying, yeah, we're light bodies. You know, we're made
Yeah.
of light, we're made of liquid, and we're made of crystal.
And which is much easier to handle than the carbon base, which was much more
Mhm.
fragile, which is much more easily damaged, and all of that. And that's very true. So all the light stuff is coming out, the frequency healings. And right now, people have been talking about this medbed concept for such a long time. And the vision that they had is that it would be this great piece of technology. And that technology would be run by somebody in authority. But it looks like there are things coming out, honey. So I think I shared something with you yesterday that was a ultrasound scanning thing that's like a group funded, a crowd funded idea that is taking ultrasound and creating imagery. That's the expertise, and then using that as the way to scan the body. And that's through light. Is that the replacement, or is that really what the med bed is, or the beginning concept of a med bed?
One of the concepts of the med bed. So that scan would be something that a med bed would do. And some med beds will be a room full of equipment, just like in Star Trek, where they had a room
Hmm.
full of different things and you move from station to station depending on what was going on with you. So
Hmm.
that is part of what we're going to see, which I think people will accept a little more
Okay.
easily. But then there
Hmm.
also will be pods, you know, where certain things will happen in there. Will those pods do absolutely everything? I get no, it just depends on the pod and how it's programmed. And, um, the technology is rolling out. But as far as fixing the human body, it's very easy to do if you have the right technology, because you just put it right back into balance. And one of the first medbed concepts that I thought was really interesting was in Stargate.
I
Remember
don't
that?
remember that one. No, I don't.
Yeah,
I didn't see all
so
of Stargate.
they got injured. If they got injured, they would just go into this like stone thing and it would look like a stone coffin. And then the lid would close and basically they would be regenerated, their whole body. So
Mm.
that was a nod to ancient Egypt. It was a nod to ET tech because the ET was naughty ET. He was negative.
Mhm.
And it was also a nod to how easy it is to repair a human body.
Yeah, they make it look very simple in these science fiction types of programs. Very interesting. Yeah, which is very much like the Star Trek type of technology, is what
Yeah,
you're saying. But this was more organic. So it should be. And that shifts the way we don't have fear, because the greatest thing about fear is death and harm to yourself, this physical vessel that we're in. So if you don't have that, you treat life very differently. You
yeah.
explore. you really experience, which is really fascinating. So the human body, she's shifting. We've been keeping on doing it, but also I think what I'm hearing you say is that we also do have a bit of control over that as well. And part of that, I think, is about this aging thing that we had been pushed into, whereas you never really are supposed to have this kind of decay that we're in. So was that the original reason why we went carbon, was this decaying process?
I think it was that they had also like turned off so much of the DNA as well. But to be carbon was to be 3D, you know, to be in the 3D. And I mean, illness is really shifting a tremendous
Mm-hmm.
amount. I've noticed, if somebody's purging something out, they purge it out in a day or two. It's not like an illness that lasts for a month anymore. So
Yeah.
we're faster, we're moving faster.
And people don't believe that they have to be sick anymore. And I think that
Mhm.
really becomes the most important thing, which is very, very, very interesting right now.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So let's do a couple things quick drive because I have a short period of time today. Um, AI models. I've been sharing with you recently that ever since the US government decided that Fable 5.0 from Anthropic was too powerful and was going to cause too many issues for national security, the AI models have shifted. And what I've experienced is that they don't finish a task, they don't remember the task, they don't know how to create. What are you getting from that? What's happening with the AI models across the board that we've been working with?
We are going to have to simplify. So we have AI everywhere right now. It's like an explosion. And if you're using AI and you want to accomplish a certain task, then there's probably like 10 different models that you could choose from. And
Mm.
I feel like it's going to simplify and be more interactive and be easier to use in the future. And I think that that model will come back, that Fable 5 will come back
Mhm.
after we're actually in the fifth dimension as far as our consciousness goes, because we're in the
Mm.
soup, but we didn't absorb all of the stuff yet. So once we've absorbed that, then I think we'll be ready for something like that. But right
Um,
now we're not, and we're in the middle of the conflict still, with
mhm.
3D still touching us. And, you know, it doesn't work. Just like the money system, basically until people leave that are carrying the 3D construct and the 4D construct, the ones that will not shift because they've not chosen to be part of the shift, until they go, we don't have the fifth dimensional stuff. So that includes the quantum financial system.
Interesting.
So these people, they need to go home and heal. Just like you've taken your shadows and you've healed them, these people need to heal too. And as they heal and as they go, then they're not in the same environment with us, and we can move forward in a better way.
That's very interesting that you're saying that. First of all, the sort of symbolism of the particular model, the 5.0, the fifth dimension, that was really interesting. But also that we are waiting because we're not quite ready to have that level of tool because we're collectively not there yet. But we're close. It sounds like we're very, very
We're
close.
real
And that
close.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, it's up to us to do that. Very interesting. How does disclosure of other forms of life, I hate calling it alien, of other forms of life, how does that play into what you're just talking about?
Well, it's kind of for either the slower versions of the people that will be going into the
Hmm.
5D. It's for
Hmm.
them, and it's also for the ones that are leaving. because the ones that are leaving, it's probably going to cause a lot of fear, which is going to increase their need to go and their
Hmm.
stress level. And the ones that are moving into the fifth dimension that watch that movie, because it doesn't feel like it's for all the layers. Um, the ones that have been really resistant, but they still want to be in the fifth dimension, subconsciously, they probably don't know consciously, then that movie's also for them to get them ready for what's about to happen because we're going to have a lot more ET contact.
Yeah, it felt like to me, it was really getting us ready for that disclosure. It was like a preparation for the emergency broadcast system, the
Yeah.
EAS. Was that for those of us who are staying or those of us who are thinking of staying? Is that what it was? An opportunity for them to be prepared?
Well, if you think about the movie like The War of the Worlds and all the ETs came and they were the scary ones and all this kind of stuff. And it was a radio show, and a lot of people actually ended their
Huge, yeah.
lives. Yeah, during that radio show, especially if they came in after it started, because they had a disclaimer at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what is that? That's it. You're choosing your consciousness. If your consciousness is to be in fear, to freak out, to think that the world is over, then you're creating your world here to end. And other people are like, wow, what do they have to offer? What can we talk to them about? What is this going to mean? They're curious. They realize that they're eternal and they're not
Mhm.
afraid of death. So they're just going to play with it. They're going to enjoy it. And others are going to basically freak out. And it's deepening the split, is what I see.
And this is a very positive thing. So in a way, and it was a
Yeah.
very, very gentle approach to doing it. And, I thought it was very well done, and that it was raising sort of bigger picture topics like what will it do to humanity? It will make you question the key belief systems that we have, such as religion, such as how, how governments have controlled us. And I think those are really, really important points. But it was gentle. It was very
Mhm.
gentle in a way. And it's a preparation. I thought that was very good. Wow. All right, my dear. I think that was what I had on the thing today. Maybe we can do another short one because I don't have a lot of time right now.
Yeah.
Anything that you want to say is the last thing?
No, I would just say really take care of yourself right now. And that's the common theme that I say all the time. Because we're in a really intense period of time. And we'll see how it all unfolds. But, the EBS thing feels like it's a possibility
Yeah.
in a bigger
And
way.
and I like that because all this stuff feels it. I think that movie really supported that. So I'm with you on that. And I think also too, it's disclosing anyway. It's all
Mhm.
here. And I think everybody, and I love what Northern Ireland did. They came together. I think
Yeah,
that's where we are right now. So exciting. It's really
so
good.
good.
Yeah. Well, honey, thank you so much. I missed you last week. So hopefully we can do another
Yeah.
short one later this week. And thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thank
All
you.
right. This is Lisa from Question the Narrative, wishing everybody a great day. Thank
Love you
you.
guys.
Ciao. Bye.